There's a term in graphic design and logo design called gridding. So what is gridding? As the name suggests, gridding is use of various forms of grids. These grids can be used as a basis for layout in graphic design, mapping text and graphical elements. In logo design specifically, gridding allows us to display graphical elements in a more structured manner. In logo design, grids can also be used when we develop and give spacing to text. True to the fact that logo design always begins with sketching on paper, this is where the grids are, on paper. There are various pads that we can buy comprising of various types of grids, which I'll go on to introduce. The grids on the paper may also be replicated too in the software to allow for precise replication, particularly in detailed work. So let's go ahead and take a look at the types of grids which represent the options of medium available to us in the sketching stage. Here we have a dot grid. Basically, this is a sheet of paper in a pad with rows of faint dots. Each dot is 5mm from the next. This arrangement of dots allows us to draw with greater precision, vertically and horizontally, by joining the dots. In addition to this, we can also draw diagonal lines by going from figurative corner to corner within a single square. The dot pad is commonly used due to the fact that the page is uncluttered with lines, which can tarnish the appearance of a sketch and mask whatever is being traced beneath. Therefore, the dot grid is considered as the cleanest looking guide paper, offering maximum legibility. Here we have another form of dot grid. This is called an isometric dot grid. The difference being is that each row of dots is staggered to the neighbouring rows. In simple terms, there is a dot between each dot and the next row. The isometric dot grid is used primarily for the purpose of drawing diagonals. We can also draw verticals within a 2-box range. This requirement is common in 3D illustration, which, needless to say, is quite common in logo design. Obviously, this dot paper offers similar benefits to the regular dot paper with regards to good legibility of sketches, which aren't hindered by lines, and good potential to see a page beneath for the purposes of tracing. Here we have the square grid. This is what's likely to come to mind when we hear the word grid. Though it varies, the most common format is 5mm squares. The squares are utilised as a guide to draw vertical and horizontal lines and diagonals from corner to corner. The grid covers the necessary basics of what we might require as logo designers. However, it offers less legibility in comparison to the dotted grid, since the sketch doesn't stand out as prominently due to the lines. So too is tracing slightly hindered. Nonetheless, the square grid is a common go-to guide to plan many forms of graphical elements. Here we have the isometric line grid. When you look at the grids, you might spot hexagons or 3D cubes. This gives light to exactly what this grid is mainly used for. Being a line grid, it has the same degree of legibility and tracing detriments as previously mentioned on the other line grids. However, it's ideal to draw 3D shapes, hexagonal forms, and it's also used for mosaic and polygon logo design styles. So that covers the main use of the isometric line grid, and we'll be looking at this in further detail later. The golden grid is composed using a principle called the golden ratio. In accordance with a specific protocol, a grid can be formed. Inside the grid is a spiral. We can use both the segments of the grid and the spiral to size and place graphical elements. The golden grid, whilst granting freedom of expression, can aid logo design in presenting graphical information in a structured manner. The golden grid and golden ratio is a substantial principle in graphic design and logo design, As such, I'm going to give it the attention that it deserves, and we're going to explore it at the furthest level.